Hello and welcome to Perspectives, where we'll take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we'll take a look at people's opinion on such issues. I am Ruth Osime. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. By June this year, Meta platform, formerly Facebook, would allow content creators in Nigeria to make money through ads and other features in a move that hopes to keep the country's top content creators on its platforms. But platforms like TikTok, Instagram, Google, and YouTube are already making payments to content creators. This has brought to light the role of influencers who are content creators and social media celebrities and how they have created their niche over the years. Brands now use them to market their products because they connect with a large audience and have the ability to impact ideas, trends, and behaviors, making them vital partners for brands. When an influencer uses and endorses a product, it adds credibility to the brand. Through them, brands can reach potential customers that are not easily accessible through organic advertising. As more influencers grasp the significance of their position, they have the opportunity to positively impact countless lives. In this digital age, they have become more than just content creators. They are trendsetters, role models, and sometimes even activists. And as their impact grows, so does our curiosity about the minds behind the content. We're headed for a short break, but stay with us, because when this is over, I'll be right here to introduce our wonderful guest, Dr. Chinonso Egemba, the one and only Aproko doctor in the company of delectable Ozinna Anumudu. Perspectives will return in just a moment. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. Yes, here comes the fun time when we begin to interact with our great guest. On this critical topic, we now have joining us first, Egemba Chinonso Fidelis, popularly known as Aproko Doctor, a Nigerian doctor, health influencer, and actor. In 2017, he started sharing health nuggets and wellness tips on social media under the name Aproko Doctor. He is best known for breaking down medical situations using humor and storytelling. In 2020, Aproko Doctor founded the 100K Club, a non-profit organization that gives support to Nigerians who need health assistance. He's a 3-time winner of the Trend Up Awards and a 2-time winner of the Pulse Influencer Awards. Also joining us for the conversation on social media and social media influencing is Ozinna Anumudu, a brand strategy and communications expert with a BA in economics from George Washington University and a master's in communications from the Paris Institute of Political Studies. Driven by her passion for homeland development, Ozinna moved back to Nigeria in 2014, where she began working with homegrown brands to enhance their branding to global standards. In 2015, she founded TSC Agency and ever since has led numerous successful projects both domestically and internationally. Ozinna has received recognition for her work, including nominations for the Future Awards Africa 2018 and being named one of the leading ladies Africa 100 Most Inspiring Women in 2022. What can be a greater honor than having two very accomplished young Nigerians in our midst today? A very warm welcome to you both. My God, even reading your profile has taken up almost half of the program. That just goes to show how well you guys have really done, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And welcome to you on board. Dr. Aproko, this is the first time we've had you on Perspectives. Of course, Ozinna, you are a regular face. You are looking so dashing and so beautiful.
Thank you.
Always, my darling.
And that's you, right?
Flatter. Anyway, so let's start on the serious topic. First, I want to talk about Meta, who has now, stated that they will begin to pay content creators monies starting from June this year. But there are also other platforms who actually pay content creators. So I want to know, like the likes of Google, TikTok, Instagram, how much do they pay content creators? Who should I start with? Okay, doctor in the house.
So I think the payment depends on, different metrics. For some people, it could be most likely they're paying for the number of views.
Yes.
Because the main idea of paying content creators for their content is basically the amount of eyeballs that they have. And then these companies can now use those eyeballs to advertise to their audience. So it's almost like a win-win situation. When you have a lot of eyeballs, the companies or the brands can now use that as an avenue to reach their audience, and in exchange give you part of the revenue that was made from that.
Okay, but how do you estimate, for instance, how many views you need to get and how much can you get for those views?
So it's different. It depends on the platform and depends on how it works.
Like how much? I'm curious.
So it really just depends. You can't just throw out figures.
So if you, for instance, you get 1,000 views as opposed to 10,000 views or 1 million views.
So it's monetized, and let me just so it's monetized.
Yes,
so
that's what I'm saying. How do you estimate?
I think on YouTube they say, okay, maybe you're getting $15
for how many views, for instance?
I don't know how they measure it on YouTube, but per click, right?
Yeah.
And then when it increases as well. Snapchat, a lot of people make money on Snapchat through views as well. But Meta doing this is actually a game changer, because a lot of times influencers rely on brands to come to them and then pay them for their services. But now you're getting paid for your own content without, it's a win-win for both people.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, when it comes to these contracts, what are the most effective ways to create influencer contract agreements, for instance? What are the kind of things that you look out for to ensure that you are not trapped or you are not narrowed down to that particular brand? How do you get the best? How do you get the best deals?
So for me, one of the things I look out for is content ownership.
Okay.
It's the content of the creator.
Yeah, but what if it's even if what if the content is about the brand?
Yes, so even if the content is about the brand, there are some brands that may want to own that particular content in perpetuity.
Yes.
And, it's something you have to watch out for, especially myself, because the ad is for a particular moment and not forever. Because even when you don't, quote and unquote, agree with the brand anymore, they can still use that content if they own it in perpetuity. So for me, that's one of the things I have to look out for. And then other things that I look out for also is, the kind of compensation. Sometimes it may not necessarily be an upfront payment. It could be, I'm paying you for the amount of people that sign up through your link and all that. So it's more like a referral program. So aside from just an upfront payment, we're also looking for other ways that, you can monetize your partnership with that brand. Okay,
when it comes to brands, let me ask you, Ozinna, how do you make sure that the brand and the influencer is on the same page when it comes to expectations, compensations, and deliverables? How do you measure the success of your influencer's marketing efforts? So
the first thing is that you need to make sure that the clear deliverables. We need to know what's happening. So what do you expect from the brand? What do you expect from the influencer? What are their deliverables? How many times are they posting? How many activations do you have to be a part of? Do they understand the brand itself? Do they understand how the brand speaks? Do they understand what the brand desires from the engagements? All of this has to be clear before you even start anything. Because if this is not clear at the beginning, we talk about compensation, how are they getting paid? He mentioned affiliate marketing, for example. So are there going to be referral codes? Are there going to be links? Is it a one-time payment? What is the time frame? How long is this post going to be on your page? So all of this has to be clear in the contract first. And then when this is then fine, then we can now move forward.
Okay. Speaking of content creation, and different platforms have different target audience. Instagram is different from LinkedIn, is different from TikTok, is different from. So how do you now best portray this message to the different platforms? How do you tailor your content to suit different platforms? Do you sometimes have to make it slightly different on one platform because of the target audience?
Yeah, so I think it also depends on the creator's audience, first of all, because if a creator does not know who their audience is, then they're going to make a mistake in communication. So you have to first of all understand who your audience is. For example,
and when you do understand,
yes. For example, myself, my audience is made up of practically 75 to 60% women.
Okay.
And they're within 22 to about 35 or so. That's like the major group. Of course, there are the people from the old and the younger, but
that's your core.
Yes, but my core is the middle-aged people. So when you understand that, you can now decide even if that partnership is best for you or not. I know that there are content creators that just, there's every brand, oh yes, we're going to work with you. But it really doesn't work that way. You have to look at, does this work for my audience? Is this something my audience really wants? That's why, you would hardly see or hear me advertise quote unquote music, for instance. And that's because
you're also a medical doctor.
Also.
So your content is more about storytelling, about giving medical advice and what have you.
Exactly.
So is that why you have that gauge, that age bracket?
Because
I would have thought that
I think so.
Your storytelling would apply to women of all ages.
Yes, but there are at certain ages in people's lives, they now become conscious of their health.
Okay.
So it's almost as if the very young people, it's not really something I'm bothered about right now until, you probably cross the 30 plus mark and then you start to notice a few concerns here and there. You're like, oh, I think I should take what he's saying seriously. So I think that's a reason why that age bracket is that way. But in the same vein, I also understand that not every brand works for me. Because the brand also...
cigarettes, for instance, won't work.
Exactly.
What about alcohol?
The same thing. You cannot find an ad on alcohol on my page because it goes against everything
that you stand for.
That I stand for.
Yes.
So if the content creator does not have what they stand for, they'll go for everything. And when they eventually do that, you lose integrity. Because it's almost as if you're doing it for the money rather than for doing for the
for your values and what you believe in.
And the minute your audience realizes that you're working just for money, the points of people listening to you is that they trust you. There's some credibility, there's some authenticity in your voice. So the minute your audience realizes that this person is going to take a check from anybody that comes their way, it waters down your brand and long term.
So basically, if the content clashes with what you supposedly represent, that's when you get...
So the idea is whenever your audience engages with content on your page, paid or not, they should be able to resonate with the message. They should be able to understand that without mentioning this brand name, this is probably content he will share. Right?
Okay.
So if let me use for him as an if he's doing an ad for an alcohol brand, because you're always telling us to stop drinking, what does that now? What are you now telling us today? It doesn't tally, it doesn't add up. And once you start seeming ingenuine to your audience, you kind of lose it, and from there.
But I have to ask also, because you hear about people creating fake accounts and people increasing their views. I don't know how, I'm not very technical when it comes to this social media matter. But what about how do brands check out the end numbers of their content creators? How do they ensure that they're not fake engagement numbers, and how can it be discovered when such situations happen?
Now it's pretty easy and straightforward to see. So for example, you can see somebody has, let me say, 50 million followers and they're getting 20 likes. So you can already tell. Or you look at their content, is it engaging enough? So they produce a video and put it on social media, and you have 50 million followers, but it's only getting 4 comments, and the 4 comments are not probably from fake accounts or accounts that are not. So it's pretty obvious when that's happening. And then a lot of times when we engage influencers, we actually ask them for insights of their previous posts. We ask to see your insights, so we can say, okay, how many shares did this get? How many comments did it get? What was the engagement on the post?
Yeah, but how can you now gauge whether this content that they promote plays a role in the driving force of in-store marketing? How can you see that it makes a difference in sales?
So when you're working with influencers as a brand, you need to understand why you're going to a certain influencer. Influencers have different values. Some influencers can just be purely for brand awareness, and you go to them and say, okay, I'm going to this person because they're more of a celebrity and they probably have a large following and they're going to get drive awareness to us, as opposed to some influencers who you believe that, okay, they actually communicate directly with this audience and they have a niche market for my product. And then you do influencer affiliate marketing. So for example, imagine I create a discount code in your name and say, if you come to buy a product, use this code saying Aproko 15. And then at the end of the month, we can see 80 people walked into the store using his code. That way he's able to monetize it as well. And then we're able to leverage it and say, okay, you know what, there's value from this partnership. Why don't we continue?
Okay, well, let me ask you, what are the pitfalls to avoid when it comes to influencer marketing and the execution of your campaigns? What are the kind of obstacles that you can face? And also, can you work with another content creator sometimes if necessary?
So one of the pitfalls I would avoid is usually one of the biggest headlock between content creators and brands. Yeah.
So give us an example
And
of a situation like that.
so maybe not an example because
Or a scenario.
Yeah, yes. Scenario is the brand comes to you because they like how you communicate with your audience, and then they said, okay, we want you to talk about this product and share it with your audience and all that. And when you share your script with them, they say, oh no, can you tweak this word a little bit and tweak it this way and tweak it this way? And I understand from both angles that the brand is trying to sound like itself,
or maintain its authenticity.
yes, while the content creator is trying to sound like he's or herself.
The brand needs to respect the fact that you went to the content creator because of their voice, so there should be that creative freedom that's there.
Yes, even if
so
it's
that's a red
creative
flag. If a brand is not giving you certain creative freedom, then that's also a red
but what if the brand also wants to maintain its authenticity?
That's where you now find the middle ground. And if it doesn't work, then the brand should go find a model.
Someone else.
To tell us.
Okay. So it gets as bad as that
Yes,
sometimes.
So as an agency, what we always look out for is, in as much as I'm protecting the brand, I also have to protect the talents, because we're the ones engaging the talents and we understand the values that they have. So we have to find a middle point and talk to the brand and say, okay, this is your voice. We understand that. But at the same time, for this communication to be effective, we need it to be natural to...
Okay, I want to ask one other question. Because I'm assuming that when you get paid, do you get paid instrumentally or according to how long the content creation is going to run for?
Contract.
Okay, let's assume that you have a contract and it's only going to run for maybe a year or something, and they agree to pay you, every month or what have you. And then something now happens with the content creator that is a bit scandalous, and the brand now doesn't want to now pay anymore. What now happens to those terms of agreement? So
there's typically clauses like that also in the contract, protecting and saying, in the event anything XYZ happens to this, to the creator that goes against what the brand stands for, the brand is allowed to withdraw the contract. And most influencers agree to this because they don't intend to be in certain scandals. And so if you're in a scandal during that period, you should respect the brand's rights to...
Okay, maybe not even... Yes, I can understand scandal. That's pretty obvious. But what about if, for instance, now you're promoting a brand of a particular product? Are you allowed to be seen using another brand's product?
So, of course.
Because I know that happened once with an actress.
So the problem is, I think a lot of times people misuse the words influencer and ambassador a lot, right? Okay. If someone is a brand ambassador, it means they represent the brand in full entirety, right? But if as an influencer, the person was paid for one or two certain posts, then you're not allowed to. However, what some brands try to do is, after you've had this engagement for 2 months, in the contract try and add and say, for the next 1 year, you're not allowed to post competing brands because they want to prevent this. And then it's up to the influencer to say, okay, no problem, pay me for, compensate me for that period as well. But a lot of times brands need to understand, like, you cannot expect ambassadorial benefits, privileges, and you're paying them as influencers.
That's a very interesting one. Okay, remember the case, I'm sure you both know the case about the girl and the comfort lady and the toothpaste. Tomato paste, and where the manufacturer manhandled her, took her to, got her arrested and what have you. Now, if you were a brand ambassador, if you were an influencer, I want you to answer from both angles. If you, as an influencer, was the one promoting that product, how would you react? And if you were the one promoting the brand for that product, if you were the brand of that product, how would you advise this situation to be best handled for damage control?
So for a crisis like this, what I would advise first is for it to be handled offline. So offline, we need to figure out, okay, we need to fix this. There's public outrage. Why was she manhandled? Ensure everything. I think they're even in court. It's legal as well. We need to clarify everything that's going on. As a brand ambassador, as an influencer representing the brand, it's best to get clear directions from the brand as well, because you then look funny if you now go online and you're speaking against the brand that's paying you. So I'm not saying you're condoning it, but you then have to speak to the brand and ask the brand, okay, what are your next steps? How do you intend of managing the situation? How is the woman going to be compensated? Are we going to apologize to them? What are the next steps? And then when the brand informs you about its line of action, if you are then fine with it, then you can speak.
Yes, I was just going to ask you that if it's something that you feel so strongly against, do you understand? Would you drop the brand?
So I think that aside from just being influencers, most of these people are they manage communities.
Yes.
Right? And communities revolve around a person, they revolve around an idea, they revolve around, an ideology or whatever it is. And because this audience is following you, they trust you to a certain extent, whether or not you're right. Because they believe you have an opinion that you can strongly stand behind.
Exactly.
If you don't have an opinion, or if you don't have something that you can stand for, they will most likely go somewhere else, right? So, if as a person you do not agree with any brand, it's always best to walk away, and that's always looking at the long term.
Can't they turn around and then sue you for breach of contract?
No, because in
the same way the brand has a right to pull out,
away.
you also have that right based off the same.
Is that put in the clause there?
Yes.
From the beginning, from the onset.
Most influencers now are more aware of such things and make sure they have contracts that protect them. Most influencers now have managers. Most brands now have agencies, and then both of us sit and talk and then figure it out. Because
I did wonder about that. Okay, in terms of followership, does the brand sometimes encourage giveaways depending on the likes or the amount of likes that you can get? For instance, in your case now as a content creator, are you allowed to create an avenue where the brand, the viewers can win something from the brand? Is that one of the ploys that you also use to generate interest?
Oh yes, but do I personally agree with that all the time? No, because to me it's not an effective.
It waters down the value because are you just trying to trap people just by giving them money?
let me give you something so that you can go.
No, but wouldn't there be something that you put, like, say, oh, let me ask you 3 questions, or let me something that
I
you can
think most
create.
times now the influencers understand that their audience are a bit more refined than that and expect more. So we will then look at the product or look at the brand and come up with a better way to engage them.
Yes, rather than just giving away stuff, because they give away,
they take it and they go.
End.
Exactly.
That's the end.
Okay, they lose interest.
Exactly. They don't even become customers.
Okay. So in handling exclusivity clauses, do you actually now need the role of a lawyer? Do you not need the services of a lawyer?
Yes.
When it comes to your
sides.
brands.
On both sides.
Speaking on behalf of content creators, I believe that every content creator should have a lawyer. Because there are certain clauses that you may not understand. The same way people bring a test to me as a medical doctor and ask me to interpret it, the same way I can look at a contract and really not understand what's going on until a lawyer looks at it.
Do you practice?
Yes, I do.
Okay, because for some reason, because you do this thing so well, people almost forget that you're actually a medical doctor.
So
but what even inspired you to even start storytelling about medical fields?
I had always wanted to be on media. So because even while I was in school, I tried to get into radio in order to educate Nigerians about healthcare, but it wasn't working, right? So I started to use digital media rather, Facebook, Instagram, but it felt like nobody was paying attention. Until something happened at work one day, and I decided to tell a story about it.
Oh, tell us what happened.
So it was basically a woman who gave birth, on the staircase where I was working.
Wow, whilst you were there?
Yeah. So I told a story.
In the hospital?
Yes. So I told a story around it, of course protecting the identity of, both the hospital and then the patients. And it went viral. And it got me thinking, people love stories. Right?
No, how did you tell the story? Did you remember? Tell us now. Let's know what made you tick with the audience.
So this was me getting up to work. It was a 2-story building. I was climbing up to work, and on my way there was this heavily pregnant. She was walking really slow, and
up the stairs.
Yes, up the stairs alone. She just had a bag, and while I was walking behind her, I noticed that the bag had fallen first, and she just continued. So I picked up the bag and I was trying to find out exactly what was going on, and she was in real pain.
Wow.
And I knew exactly what was going on. I didn't need anybody to tell me, oh, she's having So I asked her, where are you going to? She said she's going to the hospital. I said, okay, I'm a doctor there, and I don't think you're going to make it.
Wow.
Up there. So I screamed for help. We took the delivery on the staircase, and then
you actually delivered the baby on the staircase?
Oh yes, there was no way she was going to go up there.
Oh my goodness.
And so we took her upstairs to complete the delivery of the placenta and whatever. Yeah.
So how did you now tell this story? You literally told...
told it, but there was no identity. The same way I'm telling it now. You don't know what state you're called, what hospital you're called, or what But
normally with your stories, because I was watching some of your posts, Do you give solutions too as well?
Yes. Initially, it wasn't always that way because, like I said, it's a community. And after a while, I noticed that the community started asking for solutions. Okay. So rather than just tell us what's wrong, tell us what we can do in its place. But unfortunately, for many health stuff, there's not really a segue into some other thing. It's either avoid or pick up. So we still try. If there's a solution, of course, we share the solution. If there's no solution, we just tell you, please find something else.
Okay. Now I want to talk about the different categories of influencers. Apparently there's the macro, nano, whatever. So can you explain what these categories are and how much they charge on average?
So she is asking for specific figures. So there's nano.
No, you can give
there's nano. Average. There's micro.
How many viewerships?
So we put nano at about, I think, 10,000 to 20,000 followers. And then macro is more so in the hundreds of thousands. And then mega is the larger ones and most likely celebrities as well. So a lot of times when you're working on a campaign, a brand likes to engage all the levels. So you now have to pick and say, okay, I'm going to get one celebrity who's going to be the mega influencer. It's going to be the big face of it. Then I'll get a macro influencer. Now the macro influencer has a strong community, has great engagement, talks to their audience, and you know that that's what that macro influencer is doing. And then the micro influencers, which I actually really love, because the micro influencers have small but niche and impactful audiences. They know how to talk to their audiences. They know what their audiences want. So for example, with skincare, a lot of skincare voices, a lot of them have very small following, but they're very knowledgeable. They know about their products. They know and their audience really trusts their voice. So if you're paying a celebrity, let me say 10 million naira, and the person has 5 million followers, right? And they're talking about skincare, because that audience doesn't necessarily, because it's a broad audience, they don't necessarily care about skincare. They may not even engage with your product. But then you can go to a micro influencer who has, let me say, 30,000 followers, but you know those 30,000 followers are genuine. That's a niche audience. You know that's an audience that cares about your skincare. Then your product will sell. So as a brand, you now have to say, you know what, I want to engage on all levels. I still need the mega influencer because I want brand awareness, but then in terms of, getting our products to sell, etc., we still need the smaller ones as well.
That's a very good one. But anyway, don't go anywhere soon. We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because we'll be right back to introduce the conversation and continue from where we left off. Don't go anywhere. Have a cup of tea and come right back. See you soon on Perspectives. Welcome back to Perspectives. Zina, I want to ask you, I mean, I know it's not cheap to hire influencers and it's not cheap to create content and what have you. And obviously, it's probably getting more and more popular than the usual traditional campaign marketing for brands and what have you. But how do you gauge your return of investment? Because these expenditures or these ventures are not cheap. How does the brand now begin to see the value?
So first thing I always say to brands is, if you're going into influencer marketing, you need to understand it's not a short-term thing. The ROI is not something you're going to notice today and tomorrow. So there are several KPIs you need to look at. First of all, with the influencer, you need to understand, why did I engage this influencer? You need to understand, because if you say you engaged an influencer because you want to sell 1,000 products.
You just want to sell more products.
Exactly. So if you just want to sell more products, you need to now understand how you engage the influencer. So because you want to sell more products, we're engaging this influencer to build trust about our product first. If we're building trust, that means that the product is not going to sell immediately, but there's trust that's growing there. So then you now measure, okay, how do people now trust our brand? Are people engaging with our brand, etc.? You don't just look at sales.
Yeah, but over time, because I know, I mean, I'm a living testimony of, I've seen you in action. When you're selling things that you wear. I know you always tell me that, Auntie Ruth, I sold 100 of this, I sold 20 of that in 3 weeks. Do you understand?
Yeah, so that's different. So for example, I'm also an influencer in the fashion field and that capacity. So when brands engage with us, they know that they are coming to me purely for sales.
Yes.
That's why they engage me. So because of that, that's what they use as my metrics, measure on sales. Like, okay, after she has posted about this, we have now sold X amount of things. But then another brand can go to someone for awareness.
Okay.
Do you understand? They came to me for sales, but then you go to the next influencer for awareness. So it really just depends on why you engage influencer in the first place. If it's purely about sales, then you're in the wrong business. And most brands actually know this. Most brands.
But in your case, you do sales now,
Yes.
and you are creating awareness of the brand.
Yes, but the awareness I'm creating is not necessarily the same as if you were to use another influencer who has millions of followers. Because I'm in the macro influencer category, which is much smaller. So because of that, they know that that's for sales. But then they now go to influencers who have millions of followers, and then they're angry that they're not getting the same number of sales. Meanwhile, you know the reason why you went to that influencer was for awareness.
So are you saying now that macro influencers are usually better when it comes to literally sales
for sales
yes, and stuff like that?
For sales,
but for awareness, you now use mega and
yes, most times for sales.
Okay, speaking
I think Jed, for this conversation, because there's this saying that word of mouth is the best form of marketing.
What?
Word of mouth
okay, yes.
is the best form of marketing.
Okay.
If every time I come to you, I'm always encouraging you to buy something from me, at some point you're going to start avoiding me.
Oh, okay.
But when I watch a movie, for instance, and I tell you about the movie without any quote unquote, go watch this movie, you most likely be interested to go watch the movie. So if a brand keeps coming, we want to sell more, want to sell more, want to sell more, that's a lot of pressure on me to sound inauthentic at some point. So it's also on the influencer as well as the brand. But for me, talking about the influencer this time, to know exactly where their power is. For me, it's basically building trust.
Okay.
Because all I just do is talk about it. Tell you how it has helped me. However you decide to go about that is your business. But with that way, people can now slowly build trust in that brand. Because sometimes when people are making a decision, they may not even be making that decision at that exact moment when you're making that video.
Of course.
It could even come in 2-3 months down the line. So, there was something that a Apoko doctor mentioned on this page one time. And they go searching, and that's another customer.
And so the brand, if you're now going to a Apoko doctor and you're expecting direct sales immediately, that's very unfair of you as a brand. Because you went to him because his audience trusts him. And so you went to him to kind of put your brand out there and build trust. So it's unfair for you to now say, but we're expecting we're going to have 1,000 sales at the end of the month. If you wanted sales, then perhaps go to an influencer who speaks to their audience in that way.
But so in other words, what you're saying to me now is that for micro influencers, they focus, their strength is in actually sales.
So why people, not yes and no. So why you can say their strength is in sales is because you know that they have a niche audience that care
about
that thing. So for example, my audience now, I know that my audience care about clothes and what I'm wearing. So I know that if I post a picture, most likely I will get at least 50 comments or messages saying, please, where is this jacket from? How can I purchase it? I know that that's my strength.
So it's more almost as if, it's almost as if they're specialized.
Yes, exactly.
Specialized audience.
They have this niche audience.
Niche audience. Rather than having, we're speaking of which, so in the macro and micro, nano and mega. For instance, in mega, what's your audience? How many followers do they normally have?
So most mega influencers are typically celebrities, so established celebrities who then also have a voice on social media.
Those are the ones with the blue ticks, right?
No, anybody can have a blue tick.
Okay, so on average, for you to be a mega influencer, do you have to have more than a certain amount?
Most times, the macros, the micros, the nanos, they are popular because of social media.
Yes.
Right? And then the megas are popular for other things. So you can be a football player, you can be a musician, you can be
those ones that have over 1.5 million.
Yeah, so I'm not dwelling on the millions of followers because you also have influencers that, others that have the same millions. But what I'm trying to establish is because they are more like celebrities or they have following from another world. That's what kind of puts them in that bracket. So what you need to understand is when you're engaging people in that bracket, so let me say a football player, for example, when you now go to him and you're worried about selling a shirt, you should be grateful that you have his eyeballs and his attention. And that's why you engaged him. And then when you now want to push the product, why don't you now go to people who you feel have the audiences that understand it? So let's use a health product, for example, if let's say toothpaste. You can use the football player to advertise the toothpaste, use it, etc. But then you go to a Apoko doctor to tell his audience why this toothpaste is good for you. Because he understands it better. He has an audience that cares about it. So you can still use both, but you need to understand why you're using them.
Oh, okay. But so what category would you call your, are you in macro, nano, mega?
Personally, at some point, I hated the term influencer because of the way it's been abused.
Abused and abused. And
yes, I hear that.
Like, what's your
give
job?
examples. Give examples.
So people, when you ask people, what's your job? They say, I'm an influencer. So
I hear everybody in Unilag is an influencer.
Yeah, so I always tell people, and being an influencer is not, it's like saying I'm beautiful. It's a description.
Exactly.
An influencer is a term used to describe you because you have a following. So he's a doctor, right? But he's an influencer because people enjoy his voice and they understand that he has a following and he can persuade people to do
Yeah,
things.
but how do you think this influencer title has been abused? Give me an example. Because
It was.
you talk as if they pay you for very.
I
Do you think it downplays your role as a doctor?
Yes.
No, I think it downplays the
It
value.
yes.
The value of your role as a doctor, or what?
Not necessarily my role as a doctor,
Or the value.
but an influencer is, you're not even supposed to call yourself an influencer.
Yeah, it's a description.
It's other people that are supposed to call you an influencer because of the role you're playing in their lives.
Yeah.
But these days, as long as you have
10,000 followers.
10,000 followers, you're automatically an
Influencer.
influencer. You could be a comedian who is on social media. That's fine. What do?
I'm an influencer.
I'm an influencer. No, you're not an influencer. You're a content creator who creates funny stories for us to watch.
Yeah.
Because some people relate with different people depending, right? So, for example, I Want to Laugh, for instance. And I'm not saying that everyone who creates comedy on, social media automatically do not fall into this influencer tag. Of course, there are some people that have. So, for me, an influencer is somebody who is getting people to follow them to do something, right? Not just because I have a lot of followers on my page.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of followers on your page, people just watch and.
So I think that's what he's saying is absolutely right, and that's the actual problem we have, is that people assume because I have numbers that makes me an influencer.
Yeah.
There's some pages on social media that people just go, like, for example, let me say let me use a very beautiful woman. She might have 500,000 followers and she doesn't necessarily speak. She's just sharing beautiful content. And then they'll say, oh, she has 500,000, oh, she's an influencer. She's not an influencer. She's just living her beautiful life and people are enjoying it. But she doesn't necessarily nurture her audience. She doesn't talk to her audience. She doesn't engage with her audience. She doesn't encourage her audience.
Yeah, but are you saying that they're not those who actually, that's their full-time job? You don't do anything else but engaging their audience.
Creator.
Yes.
That's your full-time
Creating
job.
content and engaging their audience.
You're a content creator. You're not an influencer.
But what's the difference between a content creator and an influencer?
A content creator is a
because
person
the
who
content influences people, doesn't it?
Not always, not necessarily. So you can create content every morning, right? Because you're creating content, that's great. You're churning it out. But are you engaging with your audience on a certain level? Does your audience come to you for certain things? These are questions you ask.
But can't they come to you because of maybe the bag you're carrying or the brand of whatever it is that you're wearing? Can't you also be like a brand ambassador, even if you don't?
No, but I think the terms are just
so?
being loosely used. So what makes you a brand ambassador? So because I'm carrying a certain bag, I'm now an ambassador for the
but
brand.
it might be that because you carried the bag, it might attract more sales.
Yes, but
because people already see you as a fashionista or an it person or whatever. So whatever you wear or whatever you do is seen as.
Then that's fine. That person is
also marketing the brand.
That person is subconsciously then becoming an influencer. But what we're saying is that people create this title for themselves and say, okay. I have 100,000 followers. I am now an influencer. And then you say, what do you do? I'm an influencer.
Okay. And anyway, go on. Last words, because we're almost closing up on this segment.
Okay.
So what's your last word?
You can be an influencer for different things.
Yeah.
Right. For example, I love perfumes personally, but that does not make me a fragrance influencer.
True.
I'm a health influencer.
Yeah.
In that regard. So for me, it's basically speaking to the content creators. If you're out there, find an audience, find a niche, find something that you strongly believe in. Because when you strongly believe in something, it shows off in the way you communicate to
Thank you so much. I wish we had all day to discuss this issue with you, but you've enlightened me in many more aspects of this influencer thing. So in other words, if they call you influencer, they're not really doing you a favor.
Your words, not mine.
Thank you so much for being with us on Perspectives. Dr. Abroko, next time we call you, we're going to ask you for more medical questions. Thank you, my beautiful, beautiful Ozinna, looking as glorious as always. Thank you so much for being with us today on Perspectives.
Thank you for having us.